Good afternoon, and welcome to Supply Chain Now Radio. We are broadcasting live today from the supply chain capital of the East Coast, Atlanta, Georgia. Today's episode is presented by APICS Southeast District, and we welcome all of our fellow APICS members from around the globe, as well as any non-members that may be dialed in today. So we appreciate you joining us. My name is Scott Luton. I serve as your host for today's session. I also serve as a volunteer on the APICS Southeast District staff. So what is APICS, you ask? Well, we're going to provide background on that in just a moment. Our session today is going to focus on supply chain leadership and what mistakes to avoid if you want to optimize your team's innovation and overall performance. Our featured presenter today is Dr. Kim Moore, a certified coach, speaker, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. More about Dr. Moore in just a moment. But as always, we're glad to have you with us here today on Supply Chain Now Radio. So let's tackle our ground rules. All attendees will be on mute as we're looking to optimize the audio experience. Now, with that said, let's do make it as interactive as possible. So please submit your questions via the chat toolbar. We'll answer as many as we have time for at the conclusion of today's webinar. And finally, a PDF of today's presentation and the recording will be sent out in the next few days to each of our registrants. So as I mentioned, today's webinar is brought to you in part by APICS Southeast District, a team of volunteers that support about 30 APICS chapters throughout the southeastern United States. For those of you new to APICS, we are the premier industry association dedicated to end-to-end supply chain management. Our organization offers membership and professional development, a wide range of education opportunities, industry-leading research and publications, and widely recognized professional certifications. But more than anything else, APICS is about people. Our organization has over 45,000 members in over 100 countries. APICS has 195 North American chapters that serve a wide variety of key geographic markets. You may recognize our leading certifications such as our CPIM, our CSCP, and our CLTD. If you want more information on how we can serve you or your organization, please feel free to reach out to us on the APICS Southeast District staff. We're happy to help. Or you can find out more information on our organization at apics.org. So let's share a little more information today about our speaker. You're in for a treat today. Dr. Kim Moore is a certified coach, speaker, and trainer with the John Maxwell team. She equips aspiring leaders to expand their influence. She guides emerging leaders to lead with confidence, and she coaches accomplished leaders to achieve significance. For 30 years as a military officer, educational leader, adjunct professor, cancer survivor, and leadership guide, Dr. Moore has been at the forefront of equipping others to maximize their potential. Her philosophy is simple. All people are leaders, from the stay-at-home mom raising children, to the store clerk representing a franchise, to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. The only question is this: how effective are they? We encourage you to learn more at kimdmoore.com. And with all that said, as I mentioned, you're in for a treat. Here is Dr. Kim Moore.
Well, thank you, Scott. I am so honored to be here today, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I truly appreciate the privilege that APICS has given me today to talk to you about one of my favorite topics, which is leadership. You know, during my career, I have worked for many leaders. Some were great leaders, but others were questionable. I'd like to share with you an experience that I had early in my career where I worked for a very difficult leader. When I joined the organization, my colleagues warned me to stay away from the boss. As I settled into my desk, my cubicle mate told me, "Kim, just keep your head down and stay off the radar." Now, of course, I had to ask why, but no one would answer my questions. Well, I have to tell you, it didn't take long for me to understand why everyone walked on eggshells around our leader. You see, our organization was responsible for collecting and analyzing information. We would write reports based upon our research. Every day, the boss would walk around barking orders. He would berate people publicly if he didn't agree with their assessment. The day after he was reassigned, the office threw a party to celebrate his departure. So, as you can see, leadership is critical to our success, and it is also extremely important to the supply chain and innovation that we need to see. Your leadership approach can kill innovation within the supply chain. So the purpose of today's master class is to help you grow your organizations. You know, until recently, many companies were top-down organizations. Leadership, power, and authority were built on status, longevity, or position. However, this is no longer the case. Today, leadership is established through integrity, professional reputation, effectiveness, communication, and collaboration. During today's master class, you will learn how your leadership approach may be killing innovation in the supply chain. You'll learn strategies to foster a culture of innovation and how to optimize team members for growth, collaboration, and success. Now, let's get started. Leadership is difficult to cultivate, and it's a skill just like any other that needs to be learned. Do you feel that your team is passive and unengaged, and that you're doing all the work? How do you create a team that's actively involved, that communicates, and takes charge to help you achieve your business goals? Now, I'm quite sure as a leader, you have asked yourself those questions. Why? Because team members must feel that they are an indispensable part of a supply chain with leaders that appreciate and support them. When they have leaders that appreciate and support them, they also help them innovate. So, assuming that you have hired the right team members, it's up to you as the leader to create this type of culture. You are the leader, and the innovation that you seek in the supply chain must start with you. The workplace has changed dramatically over the past decades. It's no longer a top-down situation where a boss commands his or her army of team members. Today, teams are more egalitarian, with team members more in control. The boss relinquishes control in strategic ways and empowers his or her team to take the reins. When done effectively, this is a huge win-win for companies and their employees, and it gives the business a competitive edge. If you're not seeing the team member engagement you're hoping for, here are some of the things you might be doing wrong. Top-down management is the old management approach, and quite frankly, it just doesn't work for an innovative company. If you're managing from the top down, this means that you're running the meetings, directing the conversations, doing most of the talking, and generally micromanaging everything in your business. You want a dynamic team that doesn't just take instruction from you, but takes it on its own initiative to get things done. This is how you harness each individual member's talents and create a team that works towards your goals. Nurture in each member their own leadership power enthusiasm, and drive to collaborate. You can't implement changes willy-nilly as you go along and expect consistent success. Instead, start with a clear goal and work your way backward so that you have a clear strategy for achieving that goal. The first step is to clarify. Take the overall goals of your company as well as any short-term business goals you have, such as increasing sales, and ask yourself what needs to be done in order to achieve these goals. This creates a consistent strategy that you can then impart to your team members. Once they see the big picture, they can figure out how they can contribute. It's only natural for business owners to seek to maintain the status quo. After all, it's safe and it's working. But complacency is an innovation killer. When things are going according to plan, you need a constant infusion of new ideas to try out. Never be afraid to try something new and encourage your team members to take risks as well. Teach them to see failure as a learning opportunity. Make small changes and then monitor results before applying on a large scale. The risks that innovators take can become world-changing leaps forward. Encourage your team to come up with their own ideas, but results, this is a huge boost to your team. All ideas should be geared toward a specific goal or solving a certain problem. They must be applicable for them to have value. It's this value that builds your team's confidence and shows them what can be done. It's only natural that the focus of your team building should be on goals related to business, but it's a mistake to leave out the purely personal as well. Personal growth goes a long way in feeding professional development. In addition to your team building, schedule coaching sessions with your team members where you tackle personal as well as professional obstacles. Take an active interest in your team members' lives and help them develop their soft skills in addition to their work-related skills. Now, I know what you're thinking. Kim, when am I going to have time to do this? Well, this is something as a leader that you need to make time for, because if a team member is happy and fulfilled in their personal life, this will make them more effective at the office. Some goals are measurable by quantitative means. You can crunch the numbers and see whether your goals are being met or not. But this isn't the only way to measure success. And some leaders focus too much on quantitative data and not enough on what is not easily measured. When you're trying to instill certain qualities, attitudes, and behaviors in your team, These are not things that are easily measured through numbers. Instead, you need to choose other ways to measure success in the development of soft skills. So let me give you an example. A team member who is timid or shy during meetings might have as their personal metric sharing an idea in a meeting. And as a leader, you should help facilitate that growth in order to help that team member become a more active member of the team, because they may have some great ideas that will help to innovate their supply chain. When you implement a new strategy, it clearly either works or doesn't work. And I can tell you, I've experienced that numerous times. You should repeat the efforts that work and dismiss the ones that don't. But it's not enough to just react. You need to know why something works or doesn't work. That means we have to look deeper than the concrete results, and you'll discover insights that will drive future innovation. One-on-one coaching is essential to driving innovation. No matter how busy you are or how efficient your meetings are, you still need to meet with team members one-on-one as well. There will be certain issues that can only be discussed in this setting. Plus, you can work on personal goals here that don't apply to the entire group. I want to encourage you to hold regular coaching sessions with each team member where you check in with them, review goals, and ask about their progress toward goals. If you are willing to do this, I will guarantee that you will see success. This should be informal sessions, and they should be driven by the team member. Remember, your job as the leader is to ask questions, to listen, and provide feedback. Each team member has their own role to play in your organization, but they can develop their skills a great deal by learning how other parts of your organization work. This gives them a big picture view of the organization and helps them to better understand the roles of others. Offer your employees the opportunity to do cross-training in other areas of your organization and rotate them through different positions and tasks. The benefit of this is it will give them information so that when they are thinking of innovative ways to improve, they have a complete picture by which to build from. Innovation isn't just about improving your organization's process or efficiency. A great number of innovative ideas come from the need to address problems. In fact, you can use problems as a starting point for eliciting innovative ideas from your team members. Take a problem you have or a problem that your team faces and use it as the focal point of a task. Next, give that task to your team to address. For example, The problem might be that sales are decreasing in one product type. So you may ask your team to suggest ideas for either raising sales in this area or optimizing sales elsewhere. Whenever presenting tasks for your team, make sure that the criteria is clear. It's important that they understand the expected results, your expectations, and the rules or boundaries for the task. I would suggest before your team gets started, review and ask them to repeat this information back to you so that you are sure that they understand. This is extremely important because it will prevent their efforts from going to waste. And that's one thing that will definitely adversely impact the morale of your team is if they feel that they have wasted their time. In all your actions as the leader with your team, whether group meetings or one-on-one coaching, your main role is as a listener. If you're doing all the talking, you're doing something wrong. During these important touch points that you have with your team, focus on presenting a problem, asking questions, and facilitating. Ask questions to draw out ideas from your team members and get them talking amongst themselves. Now, you can intervene sometimes as the facilitator for the meeting or to offer your own advice when needed. However, remember, you are there primarily to listen and to guide the process as the facilitator. Resist the temptation to take over the meeting and stifle the creativity. At the core of all innovation is good communication between team members. Everyone needs to feel that they can freely share their ideas and offer opinions. Because when people don't feel comfortable, nothing happens. You'll put out a problem or a situation, and the feedback you get is the sound of crickets. That is an indication that people are not comfortable with sharing their opinions. Your goal as the leader, as the facilitator, is to create an environment where good communication can take place. During meetings, try to draw out team members who are reluctant to speak. Create an environment where ideas are openly accepted and things aren't taken personally. Everyone needs to be comfortable expressing their ideas. Your team members need feedback on how their efforts are going. They need to know whether their innovative ideas are working or not. So as the facilitator and the leader, giving feedback should be a regular part of your communications with team members. Check in and offer feedback even when there is nothing to report, letting them know that they're doing a good job. It is very important that your team members know how much you appreciate them and that they have your support. When giving feedback, it's best to start off by reviewing the goal. Once you've reviewed the goal, then keep in mind you're listening. Ask those questions that would probe and get the information that you need to help guide this person on their growth pattern, and keep the conversation moving in a direction that will better meet the needs of the individual. Innovation involves taking risks. Your team members can't take risks if they're paralyzed by fear of failure. This fear keeps people from taking chances and reinforces the status quo. It's important that you, as the leader, instill in your team members the conviction that failure offers a valuable learning experience. One way to do this is to frame everything in terms of success instead of failure. This is extremely important because innovation cannot thrive in an environment where people are afraid to take risks. So it's incumbent upon you as the leader to create an environment that team members and individuals feel that they can fail forward and still be comfortable with their positions and ideas. In other words, stress what is happening if something succeeds rather than fails. When there is failure, don't dwell on it. Take what you can learn from it and move on to the next thing. Your team's morale has a massive impact on its ability to innovate. Your team members need confidence to know that their ideas can make great changes. Make sure that you praise every successful effort and good idea. Recognize your team members for all that they do. You want to make sure as the leader that you balance this reinforcement and that you spread it around so that everyone gets some and you're not just praising a handful of individuals. This will encourage everyone, even those who are less confident, to actively participate. Because remember, one of your ways to create innovation is to work on personal goals with individual team members. So go back to the example that I gave you of the team member who was timid, and the fact that you were able to get that person to speak up at a meeting and share their idea. That should be praised and encouraged because you want to instill confidence in each of the team members. You want to create an innovative culture in your team members. You do this not only through sharing your vision and creating the right environment, but also by what you do yourself. You need to be the change you want to see in your organization. As the leader, you're modeling this culture for your employees through your actions and behaviors. People buy into what they see from the leader. They will notice if you talk the talk, but don't walk the walk. Clarify changes that you want to see in your motivation and work on yourself as well as working on your team. The most difficult challenge for all leaders is to first lead ourselves well. And when you do that, you can create the culture and the team that you want. It just takes some careful consideration, serious work, and willingness to try out new things. Remember, you are the leader, and the innovation you seek in the supply chain must start with you. Be the change that you want to see. Now, I know that we have covered a lot of material in a very short time. So now we're going to do a review of all 16 ways your leadership can kill innovation in the supply chain. The first way that leaders can kill innovation is using top-down management. And we know that the current work environment has drastically changed. Top-down management is not effective. As the leader, we need to build a collaborative environment where team members are empowered and encouraged to create and share great ideas. If leaders don't have a strategy, they will stifle innovation. Have you clearly defined your vision for your organization? Have you laid out the goals that you want to achieve? What is the strategy that you are asking your team members to address? Without a vision, the organization cannot move forward. Maintaining the status quo is an innovation killer. Why? Because when we maintain the status quo, we are comfortable and there's no need to change. However, our goal and our desire is to maintain a competitive edge and to increase the innovation in our supply chain. To do that, we cannot maintain the status quo. So are you challenging your team, giving them the freedom and the opportunity to bring new and creative ideas into the work environment? Ideas with nowhere to go is a waste of energy and a morale killer. When you are asking your team to give you great ideas and different strategies to improve your supply chain, make sure that those ideas have a place to go. Now, you can do this by giving them a problem that the organization is dealing with to solve, or giving them one of the organizational goals to address. Now, their actions, their work are driving toward the accomplishment of a need within the organization. Because when we don't take the ideas that our individuals provide to us, it will definitely decrease the morale of your team. Impersonal team leadership will lead to unhappy team members. Take time to get to know your team members beyond the office. It is critical that they feel that you are interested in them and that you want to know more about them. If you want to have an effective work environment, then it's important to have happy team members. And the way to get happy team members is to demonstrate that you care for them. Because people don't want to know how much we know until they know how much we care. Looking at numbers isn't the only way to measure success. When you are working with your team members to help them grow and develop on a personal level and as individuals, you are going to be working with them primarily on their soft skills. And we can't use numbers to measure that. So make sure that you are allowing success to be defined by many different outcomes, not just by the numbers, because numbers are not the only way to measure success. Failure to ask why limits your insight and shuts down innovation. Your goal as the leader is to really facilitate the process. You've hired great people. And as Jim Collins says, get those people on the bus and get them into the right seat. When you have them in the right seat, release them to do what it is that you need them to do. You ask the questions to guide that process. So ask the why to help facilitate the innovation that you need to help your organization maintain its competitive advantage. Failure to coach will restrain your team members' growth. Research has shown over and over the way to improve performance is through coaching. You are the head coach of your team. Now, this requires you to put time and effort into meeting with each one of your team members individually and having one-on-one coaching sessions with them. And you should do this on a regular basis, not just when something goes wrong, but on a regular basis. Because if you help that person grow, then they're going to help you and the organization be successful. Keeping team members in a rut suppresses innovation. Give your team members opportunities that will grow them, that will stretch them. Just because it's not in their specifically defined job area doesn't mean that you can't give that person the opportunity to do something different. Remember, we want to give team members the opportunity to cross-train and learn about other functions within the organization. That will help stimulate the innovation in their particular job area. So we don't want to keep team members just narrowly defined in a stovepipe environment. No problem solving results in the same old solutions. And one of my favorite quotes is from Albert Einstein that says, if you do the same thing over and over expecting different results, that is insanity. If you want to solve the problems that you have in your organization and create innovation in your supply chain, then you have to come up with creative ways to address the problems. So you want to make sure that you're not doing the same old things, because if you do the same old things, you're going to get the same old results. Our goal is to make sure that we are innovating and keeping our competitive advantage. Unclear criteria leads to confusion and wasted effort. As the leader, you want to make sure that you are clearly defining what it is that you expect from your team and how you expect them, the results to be, what results you expect to have from them. So want to make sure that you give clear, precise information to lead the innovation in your organization and not waste the time and efforts of the team members. Talking and not listening will curb team members' participation. If you are doing all the talking at the meeting, or all the talking in the coaching session, or all the talking during the presentation, then you are going to stifle innovation. Why? Because all I need to do as a team member is sit back and listen to you. You want to facilitate this process. So as the facilitator, you want to make sure that you are listening, asking questions that will guide the conversation, and questions that will fuel the discussion. It is perfectly okay to interject and share, but please try to keep that to a minimum, because this is about your team building its capacity to create innovative ideas to help you and your organization be successful. Lack of communication. Well, it creates a negative environment. If people do not know what's going on or do not have a clear understanding of what is expected and why, then frustration builds. And when frustration builds, then the culture becomes very negative. Your primary function as a leader is to communicate with all of the individuals in your organization, but in particular on your team. Now make sure that when you are doing that, you are given effective feedback, because lack of feedback shuts down innovative ideas. If you are never giving people constructive feedback to help move their growth along, then you're not going to see the innovation that you need in your organization. So give effective feedback and do it on a regular basis. Fear of failure keeps people from taking chances and reinforces the status quo. And once again, if you do the same thing over and over, you will get the same results. But you have to create an environment where people feel it's perfectly safe to fail forward, because failure is not the end of the journey. It is the beginning of the next step. So help your people to understand that failure can move our organization forward. And last but not least, no positive reinforcement has a massive impact on your team's morale. If you want to have innovation in the supply chain, then you have to give positive reinforcement to all of your team members. Let them know, even when things are not going well or there doesn't seem to be a lot going on, let them know that they're doing a good job and how much you appreciate them. If people feel that they are valued and an integral part of the organization, then they will go the extra mile to help you and the organization achieve its goals. Now, today, we have talked about 16 ways your leadership approach can kill innovation in the supply chain. During today's masterclass, you have learned how your leadership approach may be killing innovation in the supply chain. You have learned strategies to foster a culture of innovation and how to optimize team members for growth, collaboration, and success. Remember, you are the leader, and the innovation you seek in the supply chain must start with you. So, Scott, I want to say thank you. I truly appreciate the opportunity today to present this webinar. My goal as a coach and trainer is to add value to others. And I hope that the information that has been shared today has provoked thinking and has added value to the members of the APICS organization. So at this time, I want to turn it over to you, Scott, for Q&A.
Terrific. Thanks so much, Dr. Moore. I wish we had 2 or 3 more hours with you today. I really enjoyed your presentation. We've got questions, so we probably have 6 or 7 questions already submitted. So to our audience, I've got 12:44. We're probably going to take the next 10 minutes or so to walk through these questions. If you have one you want to submit, use the chat toolbar, and we will try to get it in. We're going to start with Alana. Alana has submitted the question, Dr. Moore, what do you say to the employee who has the outlook, quote, I've done it this way for the past 15 years, why change now, unquote?
Oh, that is a great question, Alana. So what I would suggest that you say to that person is first thank them for their hard work and their commitment. Recognize their knowledge and expertise, but show them maybe the data. Ask them some probing questions about what is their frustration with the way they've done it, what do they think they could improve upon, and try to get them to engage in a conversation, because while I may have been doing it this way for many years, there's still some things in that method that are causing me frustration. Once you hear what those things are, then use that as a launching platform to help move them in the direction that you need them to move in. Now, if they say they don't have any frustrations, then ask them, would they be willing to just try something with you to see if it could help improve their process, because you know that their goal is to be successful and to do a great job. So I hope that answered the question for you, and I hope it helps.
Absolutely. Great question, Alana. Thanks for participating. Our next question, Dr. Moore, comes from Emily, and she asks, what have you found to be the most effective way to deal with a boss who micromanages you?
Wow. Well, I have dealt with a boss like that. So what I would say is the most effective way to deal with a micromanaging boss is to lead up. So first you want to find out what makes that person tick. Everybody has their own personality traits. And so you might want to figure out what is it about that particular person. I'm a proponent of an assessment tool called DISC, which gives you insight on different personalities. So if that person is micromanaging, they probably are a person that needs a lot of information. They may also be an insecure leader. So how can you then meet their need, give them lots of information, be proactive, communicate with them, over-communicate with them with information, earn their trust, and let them see that your goal is to help them be successful. And that's your main priority. Once they have established trust that you are there to support them and that you are going to do the job effectively, then hopefully some of that micromanaging will decrease. I hope that helps.
Definitely. Great question, Emily. No one likes a micromanager, less and less, even more so these days. Next question, Dr. Moore, comes from Keisha. She asks, how do I relinquish control to my team when I'm the one responsible for everything that happens?
Oh, Keisha, I know that feeling quite well. As the leader of my organization, and I run a mid-sized company, that is always a challenge of how do you effectively delegate to your team members. What I would encourage that you do is you start with something small. You clearly define what the task is that you're expecting the team to accomplish, and then you do frequent check-ins individually as well as a whole group to make sure that the team is moving in the direction that you need them to move. Now, as you do that, over time, that team will grow in its ability to meet your goals. They will have confidence, and they will have, you will empower them to be able to move forward and to do the things that you need to do. Initially, it does take time, but if you are consistent with it, over time, you'll realize that it will get easier and easier. Now, if you see that once you have begun this process, that there are gaps in their skill set, that this is where the one-on-one coaching will come into effect, where you will work with that one individual to build their skill set up to where you need it to be. But you want to make sure, even when you delegate responsibility, that you always understand at the end of the day, it will come back that it's your responsibility because you are the leader of the organization.
Great question, Keisha. And Dr. Moore, you really need for that effective delegation to happen so you can take advantage of that force multiplier effect when it comes to growing the organization. Would you agree?
I most definitely agree. You know, Scott, one of our responsibilities as a leader is to multiply leaders. We should grow and develop the leaders within our organizations to take our job. Now, I know that sounds threatening to some people, but you can't move to the next level and do great and wonderful things if you haven't raised up the next leader to take your place. So growing and developing that team is critical to the success of the organization, but also to your personal success.
Terrific. Keisha, again, great question. We're going to get back to Alana. She had a second question here. What do you say to employees not wanting to share tribal knowledge even after sharing the bigger picture or bigger picture goals?
Would you restate that repeat
Sure.
it one more time for me, Scott?
Sure. So Alana is basically asking, what do you say to employees? So after you've shared the bigger picture and the bigger picture goals with these employees, however, the employees still do not want to share tribal knowledge. So,
well, right, I understand. So what I would say, Alana, is I would meet with that person one-on-one, and I would try to understand what is the fear that that individual has beyond this feeling that they have. In my experience, I have found that people that don't want to share normally are concerned about several things. One, how they could be perceived. Two, that if they give this information, it's going to help someone else achieve what they want, so it feeds into their insecurity. You know, maybe in the past they have experienced some negative results of that nature. So as the leader, I want to try to understand what their motivation is behind that. And then I want to coach and support them in understanding that's not how this team is going to operate. Remind them that they bring gifts and talents to the table, and give them some specific examples of the contribution they have made to the organization and how much you value that information and how much you value them. And over time, hopefully you will see that they will become a little more receptive to sharing information, because normally when people don't share, it's because they are insecure as to what how it's going to impact them.
Great question, and I appreciate your perspective there. You know, that with them is always important. You know, what's in it for me, and not from a selfish perspective, but you know, back to empowering folks and making sure they're successful as the organization accomplishes its goals and objectives and growth.
You're absolutely right about that, Scott. So one of the things when I coach leaders, I always encourage them to give all of the credit to their team and take all of the blame when things don't go wrong for the team. So give your team all of the credit and let them know that it's about them and not you.
Terrific. Great question, Alana. Thanks again for joining us. Next question, and this may have to be the last one because we want to hit one special event before we wrap up. So Tom asks, would it make sense for me to bring someone who who is not a leader to the March 4th Leadership Workshop? And that's a great question. That's what we're going to talk about next.
Well, Tom, you are absolutely correct that it would make a lot of sense for you to bring someone to this particular event that we have coming up on March the 4th. Now, Tom, why is this important to bring someone else with you? Everybody is a leader, Tom. Everybody is a leader. Why? Because leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. And so everyone has influence. Sometimes we don't realize the power that we have in ourselves. Just from the conversation that you have at the cashier at the supermarket, or the volunteer that you see at church, or even a member of your team. You are a leader and you can impact that person's life. So I would strongly encourage that you bring someone else with you, and everyone else on the workshop. I'd say bring someone else with you, because this workshop is a great opportunity for all of us to learn from elite thinkers that are the #1 leadership experts in the world. So Scott, you're going to have the opportunity to hear from my mentor, Dr. John C. Maxwell. Also, you'll hear from Dave Ramsey, who is a phenomenal speaker, Cheryl Batchelder, who was the former CEO of Popeye Chicken, and one of my favorite athletes, Warwick Dunn. It's going to be a great event, just a great opportunity to continue to grow as a leader.
Love it. And big special thanks to the APICS Savannah chapter, which is really on the move. Jeff Leroy down there, who's the current chapter president and the founding president, after chatting with Dr. Moore, we had to get you up to Savannah, so the date of the workshop is March 4th, which occurs the day after the 2-day district meeting. So big thanks to Savannah chapter for stepping up and sponsoring Dr. Moore and this workshop. And anything else that we can add as to, if someone asks, hey, why come to this workshop, Dr. Moore? What would be one additional point to bring out?
Well, the one thing I would say is that as a leader, we must always continue to grow so that we can then help the people that we have the privilege to lead. So as a leader, you want to take advantage of great leaders that you can learn from. And this workshop, or this event that we're going to be hosting for Savannah, is going to give you that opportunity to make new and meaningful connections with like-minded supply chain management leaders. And that will help you impact the supply chain community. And hopefully, and I know it will help to drive innovation in the supply chain. So I strongly encourage you to come out. It's going to be a great day.
Absolutely, and Dr. Moore comes very highly recommended, so I'm excited to meet her in Savannah, as my wife and I are both going. So to our audience, we'll make sure we include a link to not only to the recording and of course the PDF version of today's presentation, but we'll also include a link to all of our registrants to take advantage of the one-day workshop. Okay, well, Dr. Moore, thank you for your time and perspective today. We want to wrap up this session today on a few final items on that final slide. So again, the PDF version of the presentation and the recording will go out to each registrant. You can also find the recording as a podcast on iTunes or SoundCloud in the next few days. This will be located on the Supply Chain Now radio channel. Secondly, we'd invite each of you to join us for one of our upcoming webinar sessions. We're just about to roll out probably 3 or 4 of our next scheduled sessions. We're trying to get more lead time for folks that plan out their work weeks. Each of today's attendees will also get additional information on these sessions in the next few days. Next up, For those of you that currently serve as APICS volunteer leaders, we hope that you'd consider joining us in the event we talked about. The next APICS Southeast District meeting takes place in Savannah on March 2nd and 3rd. And in addition to a couple days of networking and leadership development, we're also going to be touring the Georgia Ports Authority and Gulfstream. Gulfstream in particular was instrumental in standing up the new Savannah chapter. This event is hosted by our new APICS Savannah chapter, so come learn what all the fuss is about. And there's lots of fuss in the ever-expanding logistics market of Savannah, Georgia. You can find more information on the district meeting at apicssoutheast.org. And finally, we'd welcome each of you to join us at the 2018 Georgia Logistics Summit. We're in our 10th year this year, and the summit is co-located in 2018 with Modex. And we're going to have thousands of supply chain practitioners in attendance. Modex is known for bringing 30,000 people to Atlanta when they hold it here. Our keynote this year is the Chief Information Officer for UPS, Mr. Juan Perez. And if you want more information, check out georgia.org, or you can reach out to me directly as I serve this year on the Georgia Logistics Summit Executive Committee. So on that note, feel free to reach out to me if there's anything we can do to serve as a resource for you and your organization. So Dr. Moore, before we conclude today's session, any final thoughts on your end?
Well, Scott, first off, I'd like to say thank you once again to the Savannah APICS chapter, and congratulations on starting your new chapter. I think that's awesome. I look forward to seeing everyone in Savannah as we talk about innovative practices that we can put into place to improve the supply chain, which we know is critical for everyone. So thank you once again, Scott.
You bet. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule, Dr. Moore. Looking forward to seeing you in Savannah. So as we wrap up today, we want to give a big thanks to our guest speaker, Dr. Kim Moore. Do check out our website at kimdmoore.com. And, of course, a big thank you to our audience for participating. On behalf of Supply Chain Now Radio and the APICS Southeast District, this is Scott Luton concluding today's episode and wishing you a continued successful start to the new year. We hope to reconnect with you again real soon and hopefully in Savannah. Thanks, everybody.